there's just no way. Super subtle, like uterine pinches. This feels different. 99.9% sure I am making this up because this cannot be real. I'm not gonna test tomorrow. I'm not even gonna test on Saturday. I'm pregnant. Hello everyone out there, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to sit down and film this video and talk all about how I knew I was pregnant before I took a pregnancy test and kind of my 2-week wait experience. It's just nice to finally start to make some content on this and to start to share more about my pregnancy experience and everything that's been going on. At the time of filming this, however, right now I'm almost 9 weeks pregnant, but I will be posting this, you know, sometime in my second trimester once I've made an online announcement, but certainly by now you guys should know. For those of you who don't know what a 2-week wait is, although I'm sure many of you who are watching this right now, you might be in your very own 2-week wait experience, but I'm already out of breath. Oh my God, I'm so out of breath. Basically, the 2-week wait is the time between when you ovulate and when your next expected period is approximately, which is about a time frame of 14 days, which is when you're most recommended to take a pregnancy test because it's the most accurate, and it can definitely feel like the world's longest 2 weeks. It certainly felt like that for me. I took my pregnancy test actually at 11 days post-ovulation, which you'll hear me refer to a lot in this video, DPO, which just means days post-ovulation. Not everyone does experience, you know, symptoms super early on, but I certainly was one of them, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. It was just like what my signs and symptoms were, how it all went down, and what the experience was like. But I just want to point out here, the symptoms, the really strong symptoms that I started to experience didn't start until implantation occurred for me, which usually occurs around 8-9 DPO, days post-ovulation or so. Up until that point, there's really no symptoms that you can experience because you don't have HCG in your body yet. So a bunch of what I'll be sharing in this video that I kind of documented was how I was feeling, like just mentally and emotionally, and some of the thoughts that I had in some of those first, you know, few days. And then once implantation occurred for me, that's when things got really intense. Okay, so with all that being said, let's dive into how I knew I was pregnant before I took a test and my 2-week wait experience day by day. So let's get started. So 1 DPO, I just am so out of breath. I just need to like take a moment. Oh my gosh, I have my water here too. So 1 DPO for me was the day after ovulation, and of course, I still felt very, very normal, way too early to experience any symptoms. But I do recall feeling a little bit emotional, and it just felt like a very big moment in time. Like it just felt like this is it. I'm, you know, gonna find out if I'm pregnant in the next couple weeks. And so I just remember feeling like it felt like a very special time. Here's some footage from 1 DPO. I felt a little anxious today. Just anxious about everything, like hoping that it's gonna work out okay. Lots of emotions, kind of like anxious, uncertain, and also so excited to see like, will I experience any like early kind of pregnancy 2-week wait symptoms or implantation symptoms next week. We'll find out. 2 DPO. So on this day, I very, very, very distinctly remember thinking a lot about embryogenesis. I was just so fascinated by what may have been going on in my body, thinking so much about it, reading a lot about embryo development. I just was really, really fixated on like what might have been going on in my body at this time. I remember thinking a lot about this. I'm thinking a lot about embryogenesis and like how a zygote undergoes cell division and becomes a morula and then a blastocyst. And I'm just thinking a lot about how if there is in fact a zygote in my body right now, traveling down my fallopian tube, I'm thinking a lot about how I'm literally creating a human. It's so microscopic right now. And it would become a full-grown human. 3 DPO, I was still thinking a whole lot about like embryogenesis and just, yeah, I was really, really fixated on this at this point in time, just thinking a lot about what was going on in my body. This also was the start of when I started to have some doubts. Like I think just from, you know, learning so much about like everything that goes on at such a cellular level at this time, and just feeling like it's so complex and complicated and like intricate, I started to feel more and more like, I don't know, maybe I won't get pregnant. Like, I don't know, which was funny only because up until that point, I never, you know, felt like I had concerns about my fertility or anything like that. But it was kind of like, once you're really like in it, you really start to think like, maybe this won't work, or maybe it'll, I don't know, just not work out as easily. Here's some footage from that day. I'm feeling like some mixed feelings today. Like over the past couple days, I've had some moments of feeling like, you know, I just know I'm gonna be pregnant, like kind of feeling like that. But then simultaneously, like today, for example, feeling like there's just no possible way that I'm gonna be pregnant. Just can't even fathom a baby being like developing in my body. It just feels so unreal to me right now that like I'm like, no, like there's just no way. All right, 5 DPO. I didn't document anything on the 4 DPO. There wasn't really much to note. I felt quite normal, nothing too much to say. I was still feeling a little bit like uncertain about whether or not I was gonna even be able to get pregnant. But this was also the day that I began to notice very, very subtle, mild uterine pinching, like prickling almost. And I tried not to think too much of it. It definitely felt like it would have been way too soon for implantation to occur. I was trying not to look too much into it, but this definitely was like beginning to occur in my uterus, a little bit of a pinching sensation, which did end up becoming something like a sensation that became more intense, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. I am 5 DPO today. I've had these like hardly anything teeny tiny, super subtle like uterine pinches, which don't necessarily know, like I still think it's quite a bit too early for any kind of implantation to be taking place, so I don't necessarily think it's that, but I don't know, I think my uterus is just like doing something. It could just be the endometrium is just continuing to thicken a little bit. It's making some little sensations. Yeah, just a bit irritable today, really. And I kind of this morning just was having a bit of like thoughts about how, I don't know if I'm gonna end up getting pregnant. I think I just feel really caught up with the statistics. I just think it's just as likely that I could not get pregnant as like maybe getting pregnant. So I kind of feel like right now it's like a 50-50 chance. 6 DPO. This was the day that the uterine pinching that I was feeling in my uterus the day prior, kind of like a prickling, like a pulling sensation right in the center of my uterus, started to become a lot more pronounced and stronger. And it was also very consistent. It was like all through the day. And I just remember feeling like it was different than any other, you know, maybe period related twinge I might get before my period. It felt different. I have had these uterine pinches all day today. This has been like a consistent prickling. It's different than a couple twinges that I've gotten before my period in the past. I don't know what it is. I'm definitely trying not to look too deeply into it. Like, but at the same time, I'm like, this feels different. 7 DPO. So on this day, I felt pretty normal. I did have a little bit of that pinching still, but it was really, really mild. I feel nothing today, pretty normal. Nothing really to note except for, what's there to note? I've still had a little teeny tiny bit of those like uterine pricks. Not nearly as much as yesterday. Yesterday it was like consistently all day. Today I've just kind of maybe like very, very minimal, a bit on and off, and a little like a little crampy. Just a little bit though. That's basically today. 8 DPO, 8 days post ovulation. This is when things were starting to get more real, you know, but not quite yet. So on this day, I began to question whether or not I was having this tingling feeling in my right nipple. I distinctly remember this. 99.9% sure I am making this up because this cannot be real. I swear my right nipple is tingling, okay? I gotta be making this up. I think I'm just like creating symptoms in my head. I'm like, did I feel a little nauseous a little while ago? Again, maybe I'm making this up. I think I'm just guarding my heart because I just feel like it's very possible I'm gonna get, you know, this negative pregnancy test and I'm gonna be like, wow, I was just making stuff up, or like being so hyper aware when like that was silly, you know? It just was like, I felt like, I don't know what's going on. It is still 8 DPO. It is nighttime now though, and I just wanted to share an update because there's just so much on my mind right now. I just feel so confused. Like I really have no idea if I'm pregnant, and it's frustrating me because it's like, ugh, I hope I am, but like I'm just so confused with like the way I've been feeling. I guess I'm just like not sure if I'm experiencing some like either luteal phase like things, or if it is pregnancy things, namely this cramping I've been experiencing. It's now kind of transformed to just being like really, really, really low grade, just kind of feels like period cramps. And so it's confusing me because I'm like, oh, like maybe, yeah, maybe it is like just period cramps and like I'm gonna get my period. I'm also starting to get a little like impatient. Like, I mean, this whole 2-week wait is full of impatience, but because it's getting closer to the time where I will test, which will be 12 DPO is when I'm planning to test. I'm not gonna test tomorrow. I'm not even gonna test on Saturday, even though I could. I just really don't wanna get a false negative. Like if I am pregnant, and then I'm gonna be like really disappointed, and then I just wanna like have a accurate result. And I feel like on 12 DPO, whether it's positive or negative, I'll know it's like basically very accurate on that day. Most likely. 9 DPO, 9 days post ovulation. This is the day. Like this is the beginning of what became a lot of intensity going on. So on this day, for the most part, like in the morning, the afternoon, I felt fine. I felt like myself. There wasn't really much to note. But then after dinner, this is when it all started, this cascade of many events. I'm gonna share with you the footage from what happened that night at 9 DPO. Okay, world's biggest update in the whole wide world. It is now nighttime, almost 9 p.m. I'm 9 DPO, and I just had like the biggest wave of nausea back to back to back come over me downstairs. We ate dinner about, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes ago, and we were just lying, like sitting down on the couch. And kind of all of a sudden I was like, oh, I feel so hungry. Like I feel like I need to eat something else. And Sean was like, oh, you mustn't have eaten enough for dinner. And I was thinking, like, you know, I had a pretty good portion. But anyway, I was sitting there, I was like, oh, I could really eat some chocolate chip cookies. That sounds so good right now. I think I'm gonna like bake some chocolate chip cookies. And then all of a sudden, this like wave of nausea came over me, and it was like, oh my God, undeniable wave. Got up a little while later, went to go help do the dishes with Sean, and the smell of the dinner that we cooked that was still on the stove in a pot was like absolutely nauseating and disgusting, like the most revolting thing. And yeah, no, I don't know, man. 9 DPO, almost 10 DPO update. 10 DPO. This day was so much more intense than the nausea that I was experiencing the night before. This is for sure when it was like, okay, I think I'm probably pregnant. So this is what happened on 10 DPO. So to start, I was woken up at 5:30 in the morning to these extreme hunger pangs. Hunger unlike anything I'd ever experienced, just so like starving, needed to eat. And I remember lying there in bed and it was like 5:30 and never before had I ever woken up to hunger, ever. And I remember trying to get back to sleep and just trying to be like, what's going on? Like, go back to sleep. But I couldn't, had to, you know, I was tossing and turning, had to get up, went downstairs, had a bunch of snacks. I just felt like a bottomless pit. I was just so hungry. This like gnawing emptiness in my stomach. So I had a few snacks, went back to bed, and then a couple hours later, when Sean and I had gotten up in the morning, this was a Saturday, I got up, I came downstairs, was still hungry. I had like a little bit of a small breakfast, and then I had a hot flash, which I remember being like, this is weird. You know, it was like February. I was like taking my house coat off, which never do I ever do that. I live in my house coat in the winter time. I'm like fanning myself, I'm hot. And then I say to Sean, we have to go get groceries, like immediately. I am so hungry. These hunger pangs were just relentless. And normally on the weekends, you know, we do our grocery shopping. I'll write up a meal plan for the week, and you know, we might get groceries sometime in the afternoon. It's no rush. But this was like 9:30 in the morning, and I was like, we have to go now. I am so hungry. And so he was like, okay, we head to the grocery store. It's like 10 a.m. and I just remember frantically throwing things in the cart. All I knew was we needed to get home as fast as possible. I needed to eat. We've just finished grocery shopping, and I have never felt this amount of urgency to eat something. My stomach is so hungry. Like, I've never felt this way before. Like, the hunger pangs I'm experiencing are insane. Got home and I was like simultaneously trying to put packages of food away while also ripping them open, containers of food open, stuffing food in my mouth. And then it gets worse, gets a little worse. I start crying uncontrollably, like the kind of crying where you're like gasping for air, like you cannot even control yourself. There was some kind of like hormonal surge going on that like my emotions just went haywire. I was crying because I was so hungry, but also because then like the food tasted so good, and it was just like, it was just total madness, like total madness. Even Sean was like, what the fuck is going on? That hunger is really what has continued on through my pregnancy so far. So this is where I kind of knew, and like both of us knew, like I feel like I am probably pregnant. I went from being like maybe 50-50, like could be pregnant, maybe, not totally sure, doubting myself, to being like 99% sure that I was pregnant. That was also the night, 10 DPO, that I went to bed with a hunger care package for the first time. I realized that like I needed to have bedside snacks. Otherwise I'm gonna wake up in the night really, really hungry. So then 11 DPO. So 11 DPO comes, this is the day that I did take a pregnancy test, and it was positive, and yeah, just from all of the intense symptoms that I was experiencing, I just was like, I'm gonna take a test, and so I did, and it was positive. And I do have footage of finding out that I was pregnant, which I will share, or maybe I have already shared on my channel. So at 11 DPO, I'll just continue to share a couple more days worth, just to do a full like 14 days of my 2-week wait. Even though I knew I was pregnant at this point, I'll just share a couple more days of some of the symptoms I was experiencing. So at 11 days post-ovulation, I started to experience breast tenderness, which I was kind of like waiting for. Like I felt like that was probably a symptom that I might experience, because you hear a lot of women talk about breast tenderness as an early pregnancy symptom. But here's the difference. So, because that can obviously be like a PMS symptom too before you get your period, but the difference, whenever I would get breast tenderness before my period, it would always be like a very specific like spot, just like below, just kind of like at the bottom. But the tenderness that I was experiencing was all like the whole breast area, like everything, which was very different than what I've experienced like PMS wise. So that's how I would differentiate it, at least in my experience. So I just want to share a really quick kind of note on that uterine pinching that I was experiencing and that I was kind of continuing to still experience in early pregnancy, and what I think was going on with having experienced it so early on, like at 5 or 6 DPO. So that seemed very early to be experiencing like any sort of implantation like sensation. My guess is what was happening was that implantation was like starting to occur but hadn't yet fully occurred, if that makes sense. So I can really only guess that implantation, the process of a blastocyst burrowing into your uterine lining, probably takes a couple days, isn't something that just like happens instantly. And so I think that it had just like begun to occur around that 5 or 6 DPO, and then kind of finished the implantation around 8 or 9 DPO, which is when I would have started to get that huge influx of symptoms from the HCG that was rapidly increasing in my body. And that exact same pinching feeling right in the center of my uterus, kind of a pinching, prickling, like a pulling sensation, actually continued through weeks 4 and 5 of my pregnancy, and became even more strong of a sensation, like much stronger, much more intense, like a little bit more like just, you know, you could tell that something was just really getting in there, digging into the uterus. 12 DPO, this was Valentine's Day, and which was kind of exciting. A couple of things to note was I started to crave citrus. I really wanted like citrus or like lemon in my water. And also the foods that I was enjoying, I was like really enjoying. I started to notice that my appetite for food, like food just tasted so good. It was just starting to be like a totally different experience. Like I would eat like an English muffin with strawberry jam on it, and it would just be like, oh my God, so satisfying. It was short-lived because I developed quite a lot of food aversions to almost all foods, like a couple weeks after that. But yes, I do remember food tasting so good in those really, really, really early days. I'm pregnant. I found out yesterday, and it has been wild. As of right now, like, I'm so excited. I cannot believe that I'm pregnant. I think just like over the next few days it'll continue to sink in more and become our reality. I feel like it's really early for me to be experiencing this many symptoms. I thought this stuff wasn't supposed to start till you're like 5 or 6 weeks pregnant. So I don't know if this is going to be an indication of like possibly how sick I'm going to feel. I also have some just like anxieties about hoping everything progresses okay. Obviously in the back of my mind, I hope that everything's okay. All right, and 14 DPO, I'm gonna finish things off here. I started to have some shortness of breath around this day, still a little bit of nausea and a lot of fatigue. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching this video, how I knew I was pregnant before I took a pregnancy test, what my 2-week wait experience was like. I have continued to document my first trimester, and I'm very excited to share with you a first trimester update, as well as I'll be doing a second trimester and third trimester update and all kinds of things like that. Lots and lots of content I'm really excited to share with you. If you are in that wait, I just want to say I totally stand with you. I know how just excruciating the days can feel when you're just waiting to find out if you're pregnant. It can just feel like such a lifetime, but you'll get through it. You're gonna make it to the end, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions for me, feel free to leave them below in the comment section. Forgot what that was called for a moment. I'll see you in the next video.